Guys, what's going on? Today we're going to talk about deletes, but probably not what you're thinking of. So this truck was my daily driver for probably three and a half years or so. Drove it, basically bought it in college and then shortly afterwards, for the next couple of years. So drove it through the wintertime, summer, fall, everything, to school, then to work, everything like that. And in the wintertime, basically this is a heated garage, so obviously there's no problem here, but starting after a 10-hour day at work, it hated it. And I could never figure out why. You know, this is a common rail high pressure system and it has glow plugs in it. So normally these trucks are pretty well known for starting every time, being pretty reliable in the wintertime. They're not like an old rattly Cummins, you know, that kind of thing where they barely start. These ones do really well generally. So I could never really figure out what was going on. Now, it never left me stranded, right? It would always start, never had a single problem. Even when it was negative temperatures, the truck would always start, but it was ticked off about it, right? I mean, it would start, it would just be growling. I've got a couple old Snapchat videos of it. So it was always just really weird to me as to why is this truck struggling so hard in the wintertime? It's got glow plugs. It's a, it's a good system. It wasn't throwing any check engine codes at me, anything like that. So I just assumed the glow plug system was fine, and shame on me for not checking it. But it had serious issues going on with the glow plug system, and I'll show you what was going on. It's a little dark in here, so we'll turn on our handy dandy light. There we go. Okay, so on an LB7, and I believe other versions Duramaxes as well, but your glow plug module, control module, is right back here. And then it will send a signal wire down to number 8, your number 8 piston, which is directly below it. And then I'll have a crossbar that ties all of the glow plugs along this side together. And then it will bring a wire across the front and come along this side. And it's a lot easier to see underneath here. So yeah, here's the wire coming down. You can see this crossbar coming all the way across to each one of these glow plugs, right? So what I found, and it's easier to see it on this side, what I found was that that crossbar, that tie bar, whatever it's supposed to be called, was broken. That strap was actually broken between the number 6 and number 4 cylinder on the opposite side. And then the number 1, or I guess the number 2, which is number 1 over here, glow plug was out and there was literally a bolt in it. So that was pretty amazing. So I couldn't believe it when I saw it, but that totally makes sense, which means that none of the glow plugs, except for maybe number 8 and maybe number 6, were even getting charged at all when the truck was, technically firing the glow plugs for all those years. So shame on me once again for not checking it. Shame on the previous owner, but shame on me for not doing anything about it. But at this point, I really don't need them. This truck is no longer my daily driver. I do not drive it basically from November through April, almost, I would say. So literally it never needs its glow plugs anymore. It never sees salt, never sees snow. There's been so much work put into it now at this point, there's no reason to ever even put it in that situation anymore. And so I've got my little BMW that I drive instead. So I was like, you know what? I could either spend $400, whatever it's gonna cost to replace all the glow plugs, those straps, probably the control module at this point too. I'm not even sure if it works anymore. Or I could just delete it. So that's what we're gonna do instead. So DHD, Dirty Hooker Diesel, and there's a couple other companies that make them as well, make a kit of little billet pieces that you can use to replace your glow plugs with, right? So it's essentially almost like a glow plug, but obviously there's no connector on the top and there's not a tip on it, which is actually a really good thing. That's one dangerous thing about having glow plugs, is that if a tip breaks off, it's gonna start chewing on your piston and doing all kinds of damage in there, which you really don't wanna experience. So my thought is just to play it safe here for $100, basically get this nice little clean set of billet pieces. Basically they fill in that entire cavity so that you're not going to have weird heat coming up into your head the way you don't want it to, and it's not going to have that tip on it either. So it's a nice little safe package for pretty cheap. So all we're going to do is we're going to take out the 8 glow plugs, we're going to put these in instead, and we should be good to go. So to remove your glow plugs, or just to replace them like a normal person would be doing, there is 4 little 8mm nuts that hold that cross strap on each one of them, as well as then that wire that's going across the engine bay that's connected to the front one. Normally you would just put that out of the way for now. I'm going to completely remove it, and once that's out of the way, we'll be able to pop the glow plugs out. And now with that cross strap off, you can now just use a 12mm socket and bust those loose and turn them out. So I definitely just completely oversimplified that process, right? So these glow plugs have been out of the truck recently. And honestly, even the first time they came out really, really nicely, and I was really concerned about it, but luckily they came out really nicely. Merchant Automotive sells a really nice kit for removing glow plugs. basically if it's a newer engine and it hasn't seen a ton of rust stuff, you probably won't have a problem, but especially on like these old LB7s and you're in the rust belt and stuff like that, those are gonna be really, really hard to get out most likely, right? They're gonna be rusted in. They've gone through thousands and thousands of heat cycles, and they really don't wanna come out, almost like getting your turbo downpipe bolts out, things like that. It's just really, really hard to get those out. And so Merchant Automotive sells a really nice kit that basically goes with an air hammer and you're using a wrench at the same time trying to break those loose. Otherwise, they're easy to break off in the head. So just the word wise here is just be very careful so you do not break those off. You'll be in a world of hurt otherwise. But luckily, these came out really nice and easy. Okay, so this is what your standard glow plug setup would look like. Essentially, you have your glow plug itself, the tip, the tube going into the cylinder there. This is where it threads into the head, and here's where it connects into the actual crossbar. So what we're doing is basically just replacing all of that except for the tip itself, and then where it connects to the crossbar. So we're gonna fill up that entire tube so we don't have a lot of excess heat coming up and getting into weird spots in the head where we don't need it, and making sure that we don't have a tip that can break off in the head at any point, causing us other damage that we don't need. So if we don't need the glow plugs, there's no reason to have that risk point there. So these are just gonna go in the trash. And that's it. It's actually super easy. If your glow plugs come out, this is actually a really short job. You could probably do it from in the engine bay, not coming through the wheel well. It was just a lot easier to film from the wheel well, of course. But this is a pretty simple job, whether you're actually just replacing your glow plugs or if you're doing like what I'm doing here and deleting them. I would think twice before you do delete them. Make sure that you don't actually need them at all. This truck does not need them, of course, but really just think twice before you actually delete this system. And one of the things that I'd like to do, and I'm just not sure what the repercussions of it are, is I'd love to just completely just get rid of the whole module. But I think that there might actually be some CAN communication that goes through that module, and so I'm not sure what's going to happen if I do that. I've done some different forum searching, I've got some mixed reviews. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna unplug it, just kind of test it that way for a couple days, and see if there's any check engine lights to come on, that kind of stuff, in which case maybe I'll leave it there. But what I'd love to do is just completely get rid of it, get rid of the wiring, just clean up that area, you know, just try to clean as much stuff out of the engine bay as possible. But we'll see. But other than that, guys, that is all we've got. We do have one more event for the summer yet. That is next Saturday, the 18th of September in Petersburg, Illinois. They're having the Morgan Prim Memorial Fall Truck Brawl again. So that's dirt drags, hopefully a dyno. I'm not sure if I've gotten word if there's going to be a dyno there or not. I really hope there is. I'd love to get some good numbers for the truck. And then also sled pulling in the evening. So if you can come out, that'd be awesome. Otherwise, keep tuned for the video. Thanks, guys.